Last week I was hanging out in the student community for the Fearful Dog. We like to hang out there. I was doing some Q&A, and there was a great question that came up from one of the students in the Fearful Dog Fearless Framework. And that question was, what if my dog's reactivity isn't always rooted in fear? Meaning, I think my dog is sometimes fearful when it comes to dogs or people, but he's also chasing the bikes and the skateboards. And I don't think that's fear. And I was like, this is a great question. So I wanted to share a little bit more. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that concept because you can certainly have a dog that has fearful behaviors and then sometimes not fearful behaviors. Not all fearful or unconfident dogs are the dogs hiding in the shadows, cowering at their own shadow. Oh, they wouldn't see it if they were in the shadows. You know what I mean. My point is this. Sometimes our dogs can have fearful moments or fearful episodes or certain things that trigger a fearful response. But that doesn't mean that some of their other behaviors are rooted in fear. And what do we do if we've got both? That's a great question. So today we're talking about when reactivity isn't fear, 5 surprising things behind your dog's behavior. I'm excited to break this down with you. Let's get into it. Are you worried that your fearful dog may hurt someone or something else? Do you have to prepare just to take a walk around the block? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I too had that dog. The one that you could only walk at nighttime when no one else was around. And I felt ashamed, and oh gosh, I wish that people could just see the dog that I know and love. I wanted the confidence to be able to walk my dog and not have to worry about who or what was around the corner. And I kept telling myself that if I just keep doing obedience drills and distracting with treats, that things would get better. Until I found the secret. Fear is not something that you can train out of a dog. In this podcast, you will find tips to help build your dog's confidence naturally, communication and understanding to foster that trust, and how to address those fear-based behaviors effectively so that you can enjoy a stress-free life with your dog. So if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners, grab your notebook, and let's get to it. Well, hello there, my friend. Oh, my dog loving friend. I'm so glad that you're here. I love hanging out with you. Thank you very much for taking the time to hang out with me while we sort of go deeper a little bit on all things fearful dog, fear reactivity, and the like. And it's funny, I've actually had a few people now that have been in the program, and they're like, I realized partway through this program that my dog isn't fearful, but there's so much juicy good stuff here that it doesn't matter. And I'm like, that's cool too. That's cool too. Because I think that's one of the biggest questions is it fear? Right? People are like, I don't even know. Is my dog acting out of fear? Because fear reactivity can look surprisingly not fearful, right? When we dig into it. So I wanted to kind of break this down a little bit more, this idea of when reactivity isn't fear. And as I mentioned, for, my friend that's in the Fearful Dog program, when she asked the question, she rightfully so had identified that she thinks that certain aspects, when it comes to the dogs or the people, the dog is acting fearful and the reactivity looks, like the reactivity, but the dog is also reacting when it sees a bike and when it sees like a motorcycle or something. And of course, this dog is a herding breed. So as soon as we know that, we're like, wait a second, some of that isn't fear. Some of that is some genetic stuff telling him I need to chase some things. So I thought about it and I was like, let's break down some other things that might surprise you, some surprising reasons behind your dog's reactivity behavior. And let's start with the question, first of all, is your dog reactive? If that's the case, what does reactivity look like? This is what I would ask you if you and I were sitting across from each other. What does that look like? Sometimes we can see some cues and some clues as to what is driving the reactivity. But I will say, in a lot of cases, when we're differentiating sort of the core common thing differentiating between a fear reactivity versus a non-fear reactivity would be the dog's intent and movement. Now, it gets tricky because some fearful dogs will lunge forward, but then they kind of take some steps back. So it kind of looks like blah, 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 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. But so it looks a little bit frantic. There's sort of movement up like ahead and above. You can also sometimes see, where the body, like the feet might be moving forward, but the rest of the body is going, oh no. So that kind of looks like legs are going forward, but the head is being pulled back. The ears are kind of drawn back. That's a dog that's like, I'm doing stuff. I don't think I want to be doing it, right? You can kind of see it. And I will say this, you can't see it if you're in it, and I think that's where a lot of us go wrong. That's why to this day, I still like clients to record or video their dog's reactivity. Even if you're not working, if you're working with me one-on-one privately, virtually, I am going to ask you to record it. And the reason why I ask you to record it is because it's way easier for us to step outside of it and rewatch it together. And that's where you're going to see the difference. When it's pointed out to you, you're going to go, oh my goodness, it's true. My dog looks like it feels like, because you're going to say, no, my dog's pulling forward the whole time, because you're going to feel it in your arms. Your arms are sore from pulling them back. But when we replay it, it looks different. It looks like the dog might have jerked your arm and pulled your arm out, but then they also took a couple steps back, and then they jerked again and took a couple steps back. Whereas, in contrast to that, when we have a dog that is not doing it out of a fear sort of based emotional state, whether or not they're coming at it from like a confident state, or whether or not they're coming at it from a different place, like prey drive, when we were talking about the herding dog, they're going to be very forward moving. There's not going to be a lot of backtracking for a dog that really means it. Right? A dog that's chasing prey isn't going to go forward and back and forward and back. They're just going to keep pulling you forward. Right? So that, I think, would be the biggest tip and hint when it comes to what am I looking at here? My dog's just reactive. And as I say, no judgment on you if you're like, I'm not really sure, because it is really hard to see when you're standing beside your dog. When you're, what's that saying? You can't see the picture if you're standing in the frame. Right? So that's why if you can find somebody, well, I mean, if you're working with me privately, especially virtual privates, I'm always like, can you get me some video of that? Because it's not just for me to see it, as I want you to see it. I want you to be able to go, oh, shoot, that's what's going on. Because sometimes it's surprising. All right. So let's take a look at, I have 5. I put down 5. There's probably more, but I put down 5 here. 5 other reasons that your dog might be reacting. And the first one that I thought of was overstimulation. Okay. If there's a lot going on. Now, some of the overstimulation, I will say, is probably rooted in unconfidence. If your dog is one that gets really overwhelmed by all the things going on around them, some of that might be, being unconfident. Some of that might be rooted in anxiety, right? And those are kind of different things, right? We kind of need to look at these things sort of separately. Sometimes the work that we do will be similar, but the motivation behind why we're doing it is a little bit different, and it changes the story for the dog. So overstimulation is one. They can be overwhelmed by too many sights and sounds and smells. Um, I always like to share the story of, when I was research beagle stealing. Oops, I said that wrong. I was rescuing research beagles, aka stealing them. Anyway, that's a long time ago. The point is, the first time that I took these dogs out, in particular, Soda was the one that we always reference because he was the one that stayed with me. Uh, they were overstimulated by the environment because they had lived such a secluded environment. Now, I don't want people right now going into their, oh, poor beagle kind of a thing, because I was a vet tech. in biomedical research, my job was actually to provide enrichment for those dogs. And I will tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, the veterinary technicians and technologists that work in biomedical research, I hands down are the most fantastic people in the world. They understand that there is a need for the work being done, but also understand the need and the importance of their work. And I will tell you from my own personal experience, the beagles in my care had kick-ass lives in that research facility. We used to do the most craziest things. I'm going off on a tangent. I'm going to go with it. We used to do the most craziest things. We would wait till like I would stay late after work. So after like most of the researchers and everybody were gone, and a friend of mine and I used to actually like take them out, and we would have beagle races down the hallway, and we would set up little obstacle courses. And so we would grab our beagle. Was there betting? Maybe. There might have been some betting. The beagles loved it. Oh my God, did they love it? They were so excited because we couldn't do it every single night. And there were some evenings when researchers were working late doing surgeries and whatnot. So we didn't do it then. But we would literally, the dogs would know when it was like race day. And because we would come in, we were like, all right, we get them all wrapped up. We put all of these things out and obstacles. But anyway, my point is this. I know lots of people will see those really, really sad stories and be like, oh, the research beagles, like the poor things. But I will tell you right now, at least here in Canada, I cannot speak for the States, but here in Canada, they are heavily regulated to provide not only the absolute best care, but also I know that there are vet techs that are working behind the scenes that just they give their heart and their soul to these dogs. So when I kind of tongue in cheek say like I stole these beagles, it was they were done in the work that they were doing. I just wanted to give them a life. So I took a lot of them, a lot of them home. Anyway, I digress. The point is when those dogs would go outside for the very first time, many of them would literally just shut down. Like they would literally almost pancake in their spot because it was like, especially for a beagle, imagine the nose, right? Like all the smells. So they would pancake and almost shut down like it would be too much. So we would have to kind of, when I would take them to my place, I would start off with they just went out in my backyard. Like taking them for a walk was too much. And then we gradually worked our way up. So reactivity, though, for those dogs, I'm sure some dogs can be overwhelmed, and they're overwhelming. When they're overwhelmed like that, they can actually express themselves outwardly, kind of a thing. So it depends on the dog. All right, let's keep going because I went on a beagle a tangent there. Number 2 is a big one. I put it as 2. I could probably break this down even more. And there's many different examples of this, but frustration or lack of fulfillment. So I probably should have done, I don't know, 5 reasons seem like a lot. I guess I should have done 6, but let's basically I'll talk first and foremost about frustration. We see frustration a lot as a reactivity thing that happens because there are some dogs out there that think everyone and everything is their plaything, right? And we know now that, due to some of the socialization practices that we were told to do earlier on, that we may have created this beast, right? Where we're like, go out in the environment, everything out there is yours and everything out there should pet you and love you and all of those things. That ends up backfiring on us when our dogs are not puppies anymore. And now they're dogs and they're still going out there going, everything loves me and everyone thinks to pet me and every dog should play with me. And that's what they're doing. So, that can also look like reactivity because that frustration that builds in them, like, and rightfully so, right? We told them, we socialized them to believe that to be true. And now we're saying, no, don't go see that dog. Don't go see that person. Stay here with me. All of that creates this massive frustration. So now it comes out as like almost like an explosion, like, oh, I just need to get out. Some of those dogs will even turn on their owners as the source of the frustration. You're the one that's not letting me go do the thing that I want to do. So that can actually definitely be a problem. I realized I didn't tell you what to do about it. We'll do that at the end. I'm like just telling you the problems, Vanessa. We'll circle back to this and I'll tell you what to do about both of these things. when at the end. We'll get to the end. Other one too would be lack of fulfillment. Lack of fulfillment. Usually, fulfillment I like to think is their genetic desires. So a lot of times for many dogs, they have a genetic desire to do certain things. Like our herding dogs have a genetic desire to chase things. Our scent hounds have a genetic desire to follow scent, all of that stuff. So leashes are going to cause that frustration where they can't express themselves the way they want to. Number 3, territorial or protective instincts. Now, I will say, obviously, there are some dogs that feel the need to protect their owners, and even from things that clearly aren't threats. So, we want to make sure, because I know, like, every time that I talk about dogs being protective, I get a little bit of pushback from that because usually the people that have naturally protective dogs or guard dogs have got those dogs for that reason. But now they're like, okay, I want you to be protective, but I don't want you to be that protective. You know what I mean? When they're pulling you down the street, you don't want them to be that protective. That's another reason for reactivity. Again, we'll circle back on what to do about that. 4th reason, prey drive. Oh, let's talk about the drives, the prey drives. So some dogs are going to be reactive because of their job of chasing things. They have a high prey drive. Everything to them looks like something they're supposed to chase. For the herding breeds, that is also prey drive, right? That's in their drive. It's part of their predatory motor pattern. Right. So when we're talking about prey drive, we are literally talking about something that is genetic to them. Things that are triggering them is they're usually triggered by fast moving objects like squirrels or cats or joggers, bikes, skateboards if you're a bulldog. Because I don't know why. What's the thing with bulldogs and skateboards? Like, is it just me or is this a thing? All right. And then the 5th reason that I think needs to be pointed out, because I don't think we think about it nearly enough, is your dog could be reactive because of health or pain issues. Now, again, this is 2 things that I probably could have broken down even further, but let's just talk generally speaking about their health, right? In particular, if our dogs are aging. So dogs can start to become more reactive when they start to lose or their senses start to diminish, like eyesight and hearing, right? It can naturally cause dogs to be a little bit more insecure because the senses that they relied on are starting to fail them. So that can actually be an issue. The other one is pain. Pain is a huge motivator of reactivity. And we want to make sure that if we have a dog that is aging or potentially in pain, that we are actually addressing the cause and not just trying to fix the reactivity. Now, as I mentioned, I forgot to talk about the fixes. Let's go back and talk about the fixes for that. Follow along. This podcast just got twice as long. All right. So what do we do about it? Now we know there's different reasons. There's probably way more than this, and we can discuss more. And I will encourage you that if you are listening on Spotify, you can write a comment. If you have other things that you're thinking of, like, I don't think it's this, but have you ever thought about it? I love the comments on Spotify. I'm just going to put that out there. Thank you, Spotify, for allowing people to make comments because it's nice to be able to engage in real time. But if you're not on Spotify and you're on Apple, make sure that you're part of the email list, the Canine Chronicles. Go to beyondobedience.ca and then hang on the page for a second. Their little pop-up menu will come up and it'll ask if you want to be part of the Chronicles. Do that, and then you can email me. You can always email me. Okay, I like to keep these conversations going because as I was going through this, I'm like, oh, it could be so much more than that, which really just opens up a whole can of worms. Am I right? All right, let's talk about those tactical tips. Here they are for those 5 that I mentioned. Okay, so number 1 was overstimulation, right? So dogs that are becoming overstimulated. Obviously, the most tactical thing that I can tell you is that you have to provide quieter opportunities for the dogs. Kind of like I mentioned with beagles, I started off just in my backyard, right? And my backyard, I was in the city back then, and my backyard was like had a nice fenced in yard. Sure, there were going to be some things, but I let them go through it. I let them experience the stimulus and then get through it the other side. Just like I teach in the Fearful Dog Fearless framework, how they process it naturally, I let them do it. But as they start to process it, all of those little things we life layer them, right? Now, those noises, those scents, those smells, they're all going to get categorized in the dog's brain of, oh my gosh, these things happened. I didn't die. Now we can start to work our way out. So if you have a dog that is clearly just sort of being overwhelmed by their environment, put your dog in a car, find a quiet space to take your dog for their walks. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt and it's, like, "Oh, well, I just need to take the dog for a walk." If you're feeling like you just need to take the dog for a walk, you're not going on the right pretenses anyway, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. So that's for number one. Number two, lack of fulfillment or frustration. All right. Typically, we're going to be talking about, understanding. This is kind of a thing for me. Here's the tactical for this, especially for the dogs that are frustrated because they can't get to the other dog. Okay. Here's what I need you to do. And it's going to take some time. I need you to actually walk your dog with other dogs. I'm assuming your dog is, I'm making an assumption your dog is friendly. Okay. Obviously, do not do this if your dog does not like dogs. Right. But if you have a dog that's like, everybody loves me and my dog's everybody's friend, I need you to walk your dog with other dogs. I need you to find friends that your dog can walk with, and on those walks, we are just going to be walking. We're no talking, no playing, no sniffing each other. They can sniff around. I mean, it's not like that bad, but no sniffing each other. It's not about playtime. Okay. One of the reasons why my dogs are not dog reactive is because very early on, from the start of their days, we teach our dogs that when you're on leash, you're with me and nothing else around you matters, right? I'm the most important thing. Ah, right? And because of that, I've never let my dogs play on leash. Never let my dogs play on leash. People come and be like, "Can our dogs meet?" I'm like, "Nope." I've had people actually follow me, and be like, "Your dogs are really chill, and can our dogs meet?" And I'm like, "No, if you want, you can walk with me, but they're not playing. Your dog has to stay over there." And believe it or not, that's how I pick up a lot of pack walks that way. People just coming up asking to walk with my dogs. But the reason for that is because I'm teaching not only my dogs, but also your dog that when we're on leash, if we meet other dogs, it's a ritual of migration. It's work. We're working. I know I've mentioned this before in one of my other podcasts, but I have 4 situations of life for my dogs, right? Play, eating, sleeping, and work. Work is when we're on leash. When they are on leash, they are working with me, which means no playing with other dogs. So one of the greatest things that you can do for your dog that feels like every single dog should play with them is teach them the art of working with other dogs. You can be around them and we're going to go on a ritual of migration together, but we're not playing. Now, does that mean I never let my dogs play? No, obviously I do, but not with a leash on. If these are friends of mine and our dogs get along, when we're done the walk, we will go to a secure yard. We take off their equipment and we let them play. Now it's playtime, completely different. All right. So that's how we would do that. Number 3, territorial protective instincts. The first thing that I want to talk about tactically, I'll give you the first tip. This is going to start with you. It's going to start with you. And I need you to ask yourself, why does your dog feel the need to protect you? Besides the fact that you're like, well, it's a guardian dog or it's a protection dog or whatever. Why does it feel the need to protect you? And are you feeding into that protective energy? Perhaps you're someone that's feeding into it unintentionally because you're naturally nervous or anxious yourself and your dog's like, okay, she's falling apart on me. I can't, I got to step up here, right? Because if that's the case, we're going to have to start with you. We're going to have to start with you because if we get a dog that believes that when they're out on a walk and you're holding onto the leash, that they are the ones that have to take charge and take control, they're going to be the ones to pull you off your feet and drag you down the road. And we don't want that. Even all protection dogs should always defer to the handler, owner, guardian for guidance, right? That should always be the thing. We shouldn't be letting them have that decision on their own, because that's where dogs get into trouble and they make bad decisions. So we're going to start with you, okay? Especially if your dog is protecting you from things that you don't even need to be protected from, right? If that's the case, then we've got an issue. All right, moving forward, prey drive. Basically, for prey drive, tactical advice here is that you need to actually find an outlet for your dog to practice those drives. You will not be successful if you try to stop a dog's innate, genetically ingrained desires. So rather than tell them no, never, we get to say no, not now. It's much easier to tell a dog no, not now, because most of our dogs that have that are working dogs. Most of the dogs that have that high prey drive stuff are working dogs, which means also in that genetic DNA, we have modified their genetic DNA to also defer to us. Exception to that rule is livestock guardian dogs. That's why I don't work with those dogs. You need a special trainer to work with those dogs. Livestock guardian dogs are bred to be able to defend and kill and do things without humans. They don't need you. They can do that in the back 40 and take down a mountain lion. I mean, those dogs are the real deal. So, but for our average dogs that aren't livestock guardian dogs, right? That stuff that's driven in prey drive is usually also got a component of human desire to help and please humans in there. So we want to capitalize on that, be able to say, not only am I going to allow you to do that prey drive, I'm going to make that a thing for you. I'm going to be a part of that prey drive, just boosting up your relationship points right there when you're a part of it. And we're going to have a lot of fun letting you do the things that you want to do. And then when we're on a walk and we see a squirrel and I'm on a leash, I'm going to be like, nope, not now. Can't do that now. It's not what we're doing. Right? That's how we deal with that. Does that take time? All of my stuff takes time. And then finally, for health and pain issues, if you have a reactivity that comes out and it comes out of nowhere, or it seems to be getting progressively worse as your dog ages, that would be a great time to go check out your veterinarian and rule out some health issues. Check their hearing, check their eyesight, see whether or not there might be something going on there. And then also recognizing that that pain can certainly cause that. And that pain might have been an occurrence that happened much earlier on. Let's say somebody came and pet them, your dog had an ear infection, they rubbed their ear, it hurt them. Now they have an association with people coming up to them and petting them, right? So, any of those things, one, we would obviously want to address any sort of pain. If you hear your dog yelp, obviously you're going to do that. But, checking, just giving them a health check over. What's going on? Are they uncomfortable? I've seen a lot of times, I've watched people tell their dogs or try to put their dogs in a sit, and then somebody wants to go over and pet them. And I can tell as the dog sat down that they were obviously an older dog. They might have some arthritis because they were really slow at getting their butt down. Like they were like, ugh. And I can just imagine for that poor dog, if you're an older dog, your hips are starting to get sore, everything's starting to get a little bit achy. Your owner runs into their friend and they tell you to sit so that your friend can give you a cookie, and you're just like not in. You're just like, ugh, I don't want to sit. Like I've seen that before. So it's important to make sure that we rule that out. And then if that's the case, if our dog's getting older, we make some adjustments for them. We listen to our dogs. If they're like, if I have a dog that starts showing me, taking that example, if I have a dog that starts showing me that they're resistant to sitting, I'm going to check that out for pain. And then I'm going to be like, I'm not going to make my dog sit anymore. Right? I'm not going to make them sit if it's uncomfortable. This is coming actually from me. I just got back from my doctor and I was talking to him about my terrible knee pain and my ankle pain. So believe me when I say, as a person who is currently in a lot of pain, sometimes we just don't want to do stuff. That's me speaking for all dogs with pain issues. All right, I think that's it. That was a lot, y'all. I think this might be my longest episode. I knew I probably should have broken it into 2 episodes, if I'm being honest. But here we are. We did it. If you stuck with me to the end, can you leave me a comment and say, I listened to the whole thing, Tracy? If you're on Spotify, I want to hear it. Please take the moment and be like, I listened to the whole thing, Tracy. I would really appreciate that. Sometimes I think people probably left this conversation 20 minutes ago and I'm just talking to the void. Except not you, though. Not you, because you're my bestie. I know you're still here. All right. I think that's it. Hey, listen, if you would like more information or want to hang out with me a little bit more, be sure to 1, sign up for that email list. 2, join the free Facebook group, Living Beyond Obedience. I am going to try to pop in there now. Now that I will be honest with you, I was spending a lot of time building that Fearful Dog program. The Fearful Dog program is now officially open. We are in there. We're doing it. But that was a lot of work. And I admittingly was not hanging out with my Facebook group very often. But I should be back now. If not, just send me a message in that group. Living Beyond Obedience on Facebook is the free Facebook group. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give me a 5-star written review in Apple, because it does help. It really does help push the podcast out to more and more dog lovers like you and I. And as always, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks that you are amazing. And so do I. Have a great couple of days, and I'll see you in a bit. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and should never replace the advice of hands-on professional training. If you're really struggling with your dog, be sure to reach out to a professional in your area for help. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.